Hello, very good day to you. Welcome to your latest Met Office 10-day trend. I'll be looking at what we can expect weather-wise in the run-up to Christmas and through the Christmas period itself. Now, first of all, looking at the bigger picture, and currently the jet stream is running across the UK and it's driven an area of low pressure and associated weather system that's made its way in across southern parts, bringing quite a bit of rain. As well as this, we've had mild air across much of the country so far this week. Temperatures well above average for the time of year, but we do have cold air nearby starting to make its way in. And as this low pressure drifts away towards the east, we have a ridge building from the west, and so we get our flow coming from the northwest, a cold direction, and that cold air is going to penetrate across much of the country as we go into Thursday. And as well as the cold air, notice how tightly packed those isobars are. It is going to be blustery, it's going to be quite windy. When you factor in the wind and that cold air, it's going to feel pretty raw, despite the fact that there'll be a decent amount of sunshine for many of us. A quiet end to the day on Thursday, so a chilly start to the night, Thursday night into Friday. But then another front makes its way in, so we will see cloud building and a bit of rain arriving as well as we go through Friday itself. And then our attention turns to what's going on in the Atlantic. A strong jet, and now this strong jet is going to drive an area of low pressure that's going to go through something called explosive cyclogenesis. So it's going to deepen rapidly as it heads towards the UK. Now, confidence on the track of this low is actually relatively high. Good chance it's going to track just to the north of the UK as we go through this weekend. What's a little less confident is exactly how strong the winds are going to be, because we're not quite so sure exactly how steep this pressure gradient is going to be. Nonetheless, we are expecting some very windy weather across northern parts in particular as we go into Saturday, and then perhaps becoming a bit more widespread, the strong winds on Sunday. After a colder blip on Thursday, nothing out of the ordinary for the time of year, temperatures are actually going to pick up again as we go through Friday and Saturday, but there's more cold air waiting, and so as we go through the second half of the weekend, as the low continues to push its way eastwards, we are going to see that cold air pushing in again, and so Sunday looks like it's going to be a bit chillier for some of us, and with that there's a greater chance of seeing some wintry hazards. Notice as well an occluded front wrapping around and pushing back through, so whilst it's going to be showers for many places, there could be some more persistent rain across northern parts as we go through Sunday. But let's look at the weather in a little bit more detail. So heading back to the rest of Wednesday, and yes, it's a pretty wet picture across southern parts of the UK. That wet weather though will clear away towards the east, and like I said, we have a ridge of high pressure, so things are going to quieten down. For many, Thursday's actually looking like a decent day. Lots of winter sunshine on offer, but there will be some showers around, and with that cold air, good chance those showers will be wintry over modest higher ground further north, above 300 to 400 metres or so. We could see some lying snow in places because of those wintry showers. Most of the showers will die out for a time as we go through later Thursday and overnight into Friday. Before then, another system comes through. So we are going to see some clouds, some rain in association with a front making its way southeastwards as we go through Friday. But it's the winds really that we need to be concerned about as we go into the weekend. So let's look at the gusts in association with this deep low that's coming in. You can see they're really going to strengthen as we go through later Friday night and more so through Saturday itself. Like I said already, on Saturday, it's pretty likely that the strong winds are really going to be confined to the north of the UK. Well, the strongest winds anyway. Gusts could reach perhaps up to 70 or 80 miles per hour in the most exposed spots around the Western Isles, at the Outer Hebrides. We could see some very strong gusts, but it's not necessarily that certain that will definitely happen. I think what's more likely is we are going to see some strong gusts across northern parts, and then widely on Sunday it is going to be windy as this low drifts away towards the northeast, towards Scandinavia. So Saturday could perhaps bring the strongest winds, but Sunday's more likely to be windy quite widely for most of us. If we look at that in a slightly different way, and here's some ECMWF output showing the probability of greater than 50 knots gusts, and that's around 57 miles per hour, so a bit stronger than gales. And you can see as we go through the day, it really is just across the northwest of the UK that we have a good chance of seeing those really strong gusts. But if we compare this to the chart for Sunday, so the same chart but this time just for Sunday instead, and you can see the probability, albeit slightly lower, but looks more widespread across the country. So if you're in the south, it looks like Sunday's going to be the windier day. If you're in the north, both days look pretty windy, but there's probably a greater chance of us seeing those extreme winds, or the most extreme winds, 70, 80 miles per hour on Saturday as opposed to Sunday. Let's look at the details through Friday though, because lots of people will be travelling, one of the busiest travelling days of the year. And like we had a front pushing its way southeastwards, so cloud and rain making its way southeastwards across the country. Behind it there will be some showers and they could have a bit of a wintry element perhaps over the highest ground, but it's not going to be as cold as on Thursday. Temperatures picking up just that little bit, high single figures, perhaps even double digits for a few places. Darting ahead to Saturday, and it's going to be a showery picture for many of us. Outbreaks of showery rain. There will be a front pushing through, so that could bring some squally rain and some convective bursts at times, so some heavy pulses of rain, but plenty of outbreaks of showers coming through as well. And it's definitely those winds that we need to watch out for, and so some of those showers could be wintry as well over the higher ground of Scotland in particular. But now if we look to Sunday, and by this point, again, it's a showery setup for many places, piling down on that brisk or strong north-northwesterly flow. But with those lower temperatures, there's a greater chance of us seeing some sleet or snow. Some places, some modest higher ground over Scotland could wake up to a bit of covering of snow first thing on Sunday morning. Perhaps as we go through the day, Sunday itself, we're likely to see the snow becoming more rain as that occlusion that I mentioned before wraps round and pushes its way back in. So we could see some outbreaks of more persistent rain arriving for a time. But most places seeing some showers, also some sunny breaks developing. But yeah, Sunday does look like the colder and windier day of the weekend for many of us. Looking a bit further ahead then, and well actually no, looking through the next few days, because we talked about rainfall totals, each individual event doesn't actually look like it will cause too many problems. But if we run through the rest of this week and the weekend looking at our rainfall totals, you can see they are actually going to build up. So whilst any frontal system that comes through the next few days is only likely to bring 20 to 30, possibly 40 millimetres to some places, when you add it all up, some places, the high ground of Wales, northwest England, western parts of Scotland, could be looking at around 80, 90 millimetres. So individually, those events probably not enough to cause any major impacts, but by the time that we get to Saturday, Sunday, with some heavy pulses of rain, quite likely, we could start to see some impacts because of the wet weather that we've seen in the preceding few days. What happens thereafter though? Well, as we go through later Sunday, we have another ridge of high pressure building, so quieter for a time later Sunday and overnight into Monday. But another system then comes through, and so we are going to see some more clouds, some rain for a time as we go through later Monday and into Tuesday. But then it's this area of high pressure that's trying to build its way in. It's trying on Monday, but it doesn't win out until slightly later on. It's more as we head through Christmas Eve and into Christmas Day itself that we're going to see this high pushing its way northwards and becoming more dominant across the UK and keeping fronts just to the north or over the far north of the UK. We can see that in a different way if we look at our multimodal weather regime probability, and at the moment the blues indicating lower pressure, more unsettled weather quite likely in the run up to Christmas. But as we head towards Christmas Day and the following few days, you can see the oranges, the reds, the high pressure patterns, the anticyclonic patterns look more likely. And so it's pretty confident that we are going to see high pressure building and dominating across the country as we go through Christmas Day, and more so by Boxing Day and thereafter. So a more settled spell from Christmas Day onwards. If we look at the most likely regimes from ECMWF, and you can see high pressure sitting across southern parts of the UK looks most likely for Christmas Day. That still will allow for some wet and windy weather across the far north of the UK, but across much of the country it's looking largely fine and dry. A very different picture to the run up to Christmas when it's looking pretty changeable. And it looks like this settled spell will last through Boxing Day and beyond, even until the 27th, when also lots of people will be travelling. It looks like it's going to be pretty settled indeed. So yes, across the far north of the UK, some wet and windy weather still to come, but elsewhere lots of fine weather as we go through the Christmas period. To sum that up then, in the run-up to, we can expect some wet, some windy weather. The strongest winds likely to be this weekend, particularly Saturday in the north. That's when we could see gusts of around 70 to 80 miles per hour. So that could cause some disruption. There will be some heavy rain around with totals building up, even though each individual event unlikely to cause any significant disruption. But when you add those rainfall totals, we could see a bit of localised flooding. But from Christmas Day onwards, that's when we get the high pressure building, and so things should settle down. With that though, with the high pressure, things largely calm and the time of year, that does bring an increasing risk of some frost by night and also some fog patches as well. Now, for more information, of course, you'll want to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss an update. Worth bearing in mind, this will be the last 10-day trend for the year. We won't be back with a 10-day trend until January, but you can, of course, keep up to date with our deep dives, our week aheads, our weekend forecast, all our regular forecasts, and also our 14-day outlook is available on our app, updated every Tuesday and Friday. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.